Hi folks, it's John back in the wood studio. In this video I'd like to talk about hand screw clamps. I was recently working on several projects where I was using these a lot, and I got thinking about how emblematic or what a symbol they are of traditional woodworking. You see a lot of advertising using the hand plane, the hand saw, and the hand screw clamp. But you don't see a lot of how-to photos with these style of clamps anymore. So what got me thinking was I am building a table base that is all laminated stock. So we're taking 1.5 and 1.25 thick pieces, gluing them together to make squares. And the goal here, not only to get this to go together, is to really have nice glue lines without gaps. Everything's pulled together, everything's tight, everything's looking good. And I actually am using these guys to accomplish that. Typically, when you see hand screws, you're going to see a couple of different techniques applied to them, which work, but you don't see a lot of tips and tricks about laminating. So the first thing that you'll usually see is where you're clamping something where it's angled. And the nice thing about these clamps is that you can adjust the jaws out of parallel. So right now I have it adjusted like that. Let's bring it toe in and open that clamp up, do a little bit of an adjustment here, and now I've managed to clamp that together. A little bit of a gap up here, clamp that down. A lot of times if you're using like F-style clamps or quick grip clamps and you're clamping across here, especially with a wedge, one will start traveling. So the nice thing about this is once you get glue on there, we can make a little adjustment here. You can run the screw right to the end, clamp that in place. Now, with this, I have clamping pressure, it probably goes to about here. This goes to about here, so we have a dead spot in the middle. If you wanted, you could just put it there, put some quick grips in the middle. Another trick would be use a larger clamp. So if I use 2 larger ones, I could easily span this. And that's what I really like about the bigger clamps is you have just a lot of clamping face, a lot of clamping pressure can be applied over those faces. And it doesn't have to be parallel. So typically, and I know it'll be reversed for you, I grab this with my right hand, this with my left, run them in, run them out. This I fumble with because it's in reverse. So whenever you see me do it, I'll be grabbing these in the same orientation. Another common use that you'll see on these is some of these actually come where they've cut grooves in the jaw. In this instance, this has been marked out and cut on a bandsaw. Sometimes you'll even see grooves running parallel with the jaw. And what that lets you do is grab irregular round stock or even, maybe it's an octagon or something like that. So that allows me to grab that. So you'll usually see this in a drill press photo where someone's trying to drill something weird. So you clamp it in there and hold it. Another thing you'll see, let's pretend that this is square, is you'll see them clamp like this and they'll be running it through like a router table. So it's almost like a disposable pair of fingers. That's where you typically see this style of clamp utilized, is kind of the funky, weird glue ups, weird I need to hold something, strange. This is a nice example. I don't know what they were doing, but with this clamp they actually cut out the end of the jaw here to clear something so it could get in somewhere and grab. This is an interesting concept. I've not used this a ton, but at one point they were selling kits where you bolt on or screw on these kind of pegs. What I remember from the advertising is they were pulling miters together. So you would drill holes in the work pieces and you could use this to clamp across the miter. Or another trick would be like if I'm trying to butt things end to end and I don't have a clamp long enough to grab it, you would drill holes in there and be able to pull that together. The negative is you're drilling holes in your workpiece. I think if you found the right use, you could build clamps or jigs around this too, where you're utilizing that to pull a jig together, and the jig could have the holes rather than your workpiece. So that's what you typically see. What I really like to do are laminations. I like to use these clamps to do larger legs. So the inside of this is 2 pieces of 1 3/4 poplar, and I use the clamps again to clamp those together. Then the next step was to clamp these 2 pieces of walnut to the face that would go across that glue line. And then the last step was to glue these 2 faces to, it would be the face of this and then the edges of this walnut. So when I flip this around, that is what it looks like cleaned up from the end. But on a table leg, well, let's start with this side. On a table leg, if you're careful with your grain selection, it can look like a solid piece of wood. And then on this side, I've cut a little bit of a stop chamfer, and that chamfer is set to the depth. So on this side, you can see a little better right down here. Your actual glue joint is only about 1/4 of an inch wide. So that chamfer actually hits that glue joint and takes it down to almost nothing, where unless you know what you're looking at, you don't realize that this is a laminated leg, because wood this size doesn't grow on trees. So the trick to this, I found though, is you have to do some decent prep, and you have to be able to apply clamping pressure to pull that joint all the way together. And if you're going after this with quick grip clamps, so if I was just gluing this on and I was just doing quick grip clamps, I would have to have dozens of clamps all the way down one side, all the way down the other side, and then I haven't even really applied clamping pressure to the middle. So this thing could be bowing out, not staying flat at all. So I think what we'll do right now, let's do a quick demonstration on just gluing 2 thicker pieces together, and you get an idea of kind of what I do to set this up and achieve it, and then I'll show you a few more things. I'm going to use actually these as cauls, and the goal here would be to glue these 2 pieces of oak together. So I've marked out, I have some arrows on this just to indicate grain direction, but on this I'm going to glue it together like that, so it'll kind of have a book matched look to it. So with this particular leg, we have a little bit of sapwood on this end, but this will be the good end that shows. So what I want to do before I start trying to glue this together is make sure that these surfaces are flat. So this has gone through a planer, and even with a lock on the planer, I have a little bit of snipe right at the end. On this one, I can really feel it. There's a good bit of snipe. And all that is where the planer is engaging or disengaging off the feed roller. And maybe you'll see the board pop up a little bit as you run it through the machine. But I just want to make sure that this is actually a flat surface, because with these clamps you can apply quite a bit of pressure, and you can definitely pull wood together. But if you're pulling wood together and there's nothing but air, it is not going to look very nice. So maybe one more. Full length shaving usually indicates I've got a nice flat surface. So I have this, nope, it'd be this side. Just put it together with hand pressure. Looks like I have a nice flat surface. So just a little bit of prep. Typically with cauls, I try to get them as flat and straight as possible. With this, I'm just using 3/4. With thinner stock, I might use built-up cauls. So this is a glue-up of smaller ones, or you can use lumber as well. It just depends on what you have. I like to use the sheet goods because they tend to show up and stay relatively flat. Usually I'll put down a piece of cardboard just to catch any glue squeeze out. Okay, so that is my initial setup. Maybe we'll set this up with about 4. This might be a bit of overkill, but okay. Got them lined up. Let's do a dry run here. So we're going to put it in the clamps just like that. And I want to get them nice and lined up. Leave the cauls in, pull the material out. I can go a little heavier on this oak. It's more porous, so the 2 halves are going to kind of drink up the glue on me. Put our 2 halves together. Drop it between the cauls. Okay. And now I can mess around with positioning this a little bit as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is start bringing this together. Make sure my boards are lined up. And so what I'll do initially is clamp the inner screw first, and then I'll bring the outer screw to its final position. So when you're setting this up, what you're trying to do with a parallel glue up like this is get the jaws relatively straight up and down. Clamp this inner one first. So what'll happen is the bottom of this glue up will come together first. You'll have a little gap at the top, and then you can pull in the top one. Spread this out just a little bit. Just like that. So get the bottom, or get the middle tight, and then pull the bottom. Now hopefully you can see this one's a little toed out. All right, let's check the, good. And I have a little bit of glue squeeze out hitting my cardboard. I knew that would happen, but you can see I'm just using 4 clamps. Yes, they are 4 really big clamps, but they stand up on their own. You can put your assembly in them and very quickly get this thing clamped together. Now these are big enough that you can actually squeeze it so hard that all the glue will come out of the joints. Just a good amount of clamping pressure. You don't have to, get the channel locks out and turn the handles on them, but you'll get a feel for what is working and what isn't working. I think I alluded earlier with the oak, the glue will soak into it. If I'm doing something like when I'm like gluing these MDF cauls together, I'm a little more careful on how I squeeze it, because with as smooth as that is, you can just push the glue all the way out of the joint, which isn't going to end well for you. The one negative part about this is now that I have this together, I have to lift this to get it off the workbench. So this is where you throw your back out and you have to push your hernia back in. And let's talk about veneering. Same technique that I used earlier to glue that sample leg together, we can use on veneering panels. These cauls are particle board, and I think they're 3 thick. And what I've done is I've actually put wax paper over the faces so that when we do this lamination, you are gluing both faces of the veneer to the substrate, and then the wax paper cauls will release from that glue squeeze out. So you can see on these boards, especially on the end, you have a little bit of glue squeeze out. So that would be the way if you have glue all over the place, not to actually glue this together as a solid block that then you have to chisel apart. Same technique, standing this up like this, gluing this together. If you are worried about glue running out when you get done, you could tip it sideways, but I typically just leave them vertical and everything works out for me. If you're using smaller clamps, like the bigger ones on the last one were way too long. If I'm using a shorter clamp on this, you notice it doesn't go all the way across the assembly. That's why I like these bigger ones. They give me more options. And then, of course, if you double that, so if I have something this wide and I come at it from both sides, I can still get to the middle with very good clamping pressure. Something like this, you could probably get away, pretend that these aren't on there. If you had sets of these number zeros, you could do 3 across the bottom, 3 across the top, hold the whole thing together. Another reason I like these is for laminating boards for jigs. So typically, all my miter gauges are going to have a sacrificial fence on them. I'm usually going for, like a 1/2 inch thick material. Sometimes I'll go to 1 inch or, go to 3/4. When you get down to 1/2 inch stock, a lot of times it is not straight at all. So what I'm actually doing is I'm building it up from 1/4 inch. So you can see this, we are not flat, we are not straight at all. I could laminate it like this, but then I'm going to have a sacrificial fence that is curved, so I'll oppose it and then put it between 2 thick cauls. Get everything lined up carefully, and when you pull that together, now you have perfectly flat sacrificial fences. So all of my fences, they look really nice, but they're made out of junk. They're made out of leftovers at the end of a build, or stuff that Kevin throws away. These are a couple where they're MDF core maple, and these were even worse than that as far as being warped. But once you oppose them and glue them together, you can actually get something out of them. One more thing you can do, you can do conventional glue-ups on boards as well. So this has been prepared with just a little bit of a spring joint. And what I mean by that is one of these boards has a little bit more material cut out of the center. So when I glue it together, my ends contact first, but then to actually pull the joint tight, you have to apply pressure to the middle, and then that pulls it tight. So this is one way to do almost, well, you can do a rub joint if it's not too much of a gap. There we go. Okay, so my ends are tight. I only have a gap in the middle. So this is a way to utilize this clamp, and I should have pulled the center. There we go. And now pull the outside. And this is cypress. It's very springy. So I have a little bit more gap on the ends that I'd want to. In that case, you can again bring this up, pull it together where you like or you don't like. So part of the reason I'm used to these is because for a while I was forced to use them. So, and there are some wood screw versions too. They act differently than these. The wood screws work fine, but these where you can angle the jaws are really, really nice. And one of the other reasons I do like these is, again, you could angle this. So you can angle that jaw, you can bring that jaw parallel. Oftentimes, I think the worst is where you're using pipe clamps and you start applying a lot of pressure and the pipes start to bend and you just watch the jaws slowly go out of parallel and start angling, open, open, open. You'll get that with kind of this stuff too. If you put enough pressure on these plastic jaws, you'll just watch them start opening up slowly. And with the nice thing about this is you can kind of dial it in for what you want it to do. Please remember to like and subscribe if you feel charitable, and please leave us a comment and tell us kind of the stuff that you want to see or what you use these for, and we'll see you down the road on the next one.